Hello and welcome to the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z Teens podcast. Hey, we're a program that takes a lighthearted look at generational differences about all sorts of topics. We explore everything from pop culture to history to relationships, but only at a very shallow level. We're here just to talk about things that we think are important, and then we'll have fun talking about. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of college degrees between Gen X and Gen Z, and we'll see if there's any differences between them. So when I was growing up in the mid-'80s, college degrees were something that were talked about. Now, I did go to a small private school, and so I would say out of my graduating class, and I would say we were probably pretty standard within the graduating classes that went through there, which is about 3/4 of folks would have been going on to college or at least had some college as far as my classmates go. Be interested, the emphasis on college dramatically has gone up along with the cost. And I think in particular, there's a lot of research about the millennials, that generation who went to college and university at a much higher rate than any previous generation. And they certainly have all the college debt to go with it. And colleges, I think, could not expand quick enough for that large generation and the emphasis that was put into it. And then I think in a lot of cases, it's pretty well documented that the cost of a college degree has gone up way faster than normal inflation. So I think there's some generational things that with that. However, that's not all of it. There's other factors, and if anyone listening has anything they want to chirp in, please do so in the comments. That being said, there was an emphasis to get a college degree. A lot of Gen X's parents were really kind of a first generation that they were more common, although not the majority. But colleges were expanding, and the job market in particular at that time was heavily influenced by the baby boomers, which were an enormous generation. And so a college degree was a discriminator that could help you, get ahead. And that's also where I think it started, that college degrees became sort of a requirement for jobs that really didn't necessarily need a college degree. And I think we're still dealing with the effects of that, although I think that's changing now. So that being said, college was emphasized, I would say, but it wasn't nearly, I think, highlighted and everything as well to the degree that the millennials were. And so as far as my teens, I have one teen that is getting ready to go to college. He's actually been accepted to a couple of them. And just kind of as a background, he's got good grades, good test scores. He has been accepted to everywhere that he's applied so far. I will say that as a, certainly a upper middle class type family, we are having some sticker shock at how expensive everything is. And so it really, I think, is important for people to maybe sit back and consider, do they need the degree? What is it what they want to do? And go from there. I think, for me, in the 80s, a degree wasn't that cost prohibitive. Most people, if they decided to go do it, they could do it. But nowadays, I think you really probably need to think a little bit deeper about what degree you want and why you want it and what you hope to do with it, because the cost of getting that degree has to be taken into account going forward. So let's just start with the general question from my older teen. In general, your classmates, your friends, what's the consensus? Are most people definitely going? Are some people on the fence? Or some people definitely not going?
Yeah, I think a good chunk of people definitely are kind of just going the traditional route, yeah, and going to college, stuff like that. But I think things definitely have changed from, kind of how it was maybe 20 years ago, in the sense that because college has gotten so expensive, um, a lot of people are kind of rethinking it and are kind of deciding that it's not really worth it for them to really go and get that degree and that they'll be fine without it. So I think things are sort of starting to change, just in the sense of because of how expensive college has gotten, that it's really kind of prohibitive for a lot of families to even be able to send somebody to college. So that's kind of definitely, I think, put a damper on the amount of kids that are planning on going to college. But as far as my friends, the majority of them, I would say, are going to some sort of college. So, yeah.
Okay. And as far as my younger teen, where do you now fit on the spectrum? I know you don't think about it too much, but is there an expectation? Do you intend to go at this point? And what are your friends, if you guys talk about it, what do you guys talk about?
So for me, I will probably end up going to college somewhere. And with my friends, we don't really talk about it too much. It's just not really too important to us yet.
Okay, but I know the schools here are trying to emphasize, and there was actually a college night for even, not just the seniors, but for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. Did anybody go to that, or is that something that was talked about?
No, nobody talked about it, and I don't think anybody went.
Okay. So with that, let's talk. Do you think that most of your friends understand the cost of college and the cost of their degree? Do you think people are starting to understand that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why actually I think the majority of my friends are going to in-state schools. Where not only the tuition's cheaper, but it's a lot easier to get kind of financial aid or scholarship money for an in-state school, because there's a lot of kind of local programs and stuff. So that's a big thing. And yeah, I mean, not many or as many people are considering going somewhere out of state, unless they kind of have some sort of reason to.
Okay, so along with that, yes, we've looked at out of state, and I would say even with some of the money that I've saved since you were born and things like that, it is still quite the bit of sticker shock. So we talked about scholarships, or you mentioned scholarships for a minute. How do you feel like what you've seen from the scholarship process as far as just a student versus, we're not going to talk about any sort of athletics or anything like that, but just what have you thought so far, what you've seen about how some of the scholarship process works, and what have you learned and could share to anybody that's listening?
Yeah, so I've been able to get some decent academic scholarships, just based on grades and test scores, that were pretty good, but actually they were not really as much as I thought they would have been, which was, I guess, a little bit of kind of a shock in a sense, because outside of those, it takes a lot of work, and most scholarships, outside kind of external scholarships, are not that much money, especially for how much sometimes effort you have to put into them. So it is definitely kind of, I would say, kind of tough to get money scholarship wise, outside of athletics, because academic scholarships usually only cover up to about half.
Yeah, so I think the bottom line is whether it's athletics or academics or something, there's amount of effort that has to be put in. You're not necessarily just going to walk into some great situation where something's just going to fall in your lap. For my younger teen, what do you think is the most important thing to get you set up to go to college? And have you thought about, what type of degree you might be thinking about?
So I haven't really thought too much about what type of degree I want, but I think one thing that'll really help me to set up for college is starting to figure out how I'm going to pay for it, what scholarships I can do, and start working on all my tests my standardized tests and grades and all that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The last part, which is just put in the effort now. Don't start behind by having poor grades or something that you have to make up for later on. I've mentioned this before, and let me just kind of finish with this, but have you seen, like I distinctly remember a lot of my classmates, or a certain percentage of them, realize kind of the end of their junior year, certainly the beginning of their senior year, like, oh, I wish I had done better earlier on, or I wish I had put more effort into things. Have you come across that with any of your friends that have maybe said that out loud?
I don't think really anyone's said it out loud per se, at least that I've heard, but there are definitely some people that are all of a sudden, trying to actually put a lot more effort in than they have for the past 3 years, trying to make up for some of the stuff they didn't do early on. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a factor.
Okay, so now reaching kind of this point, do you have any advice for anybody out there of, just something you can say, hey, here's one or two things to help you out as you think about going to college?
The biggest thing I think is good grades, get good grades, do good on your standardized tests, because, even though, I kind of said the academic scholarships aren't much, I mean, that's still, they can cover up to half of, sometimes the expense, and that is not an insignificant amount of money at all. So if you can, land one of those, it definitely makes it a lot easier to afford college.
Okay, those are good words. And then, the other part is really, really try and understand the cost, because even I thought I knew pretty good, and it's been quite the sticker shock. So really think through if you're willing, able, and ready, and then really what kind of degree you're going to get and what kind of job you anticipate getting out of there. Because the one thing we didn't really hit on too much, which is student loans. And this for, the U.S., not so much the international, but man, student loans, you get behind on those things. You can't discharge those through any type of bankruptcy. So you are stuck with that loan forever. So really be careful and make sure you're making smart decisions before you start taking out any kind of student loans. So be careful with that. Get better advice than what you're going to get on this show, and really think about before you really saddle yourself with some pretty high debts. Okay, that's all we have for today. Thank you for all your listening. And again, please drop a like, leave a comment. That certainly helps us going forward. And that'll be it for today. Thank you for listening to the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z teens. Bye.